Where is marketing technology going in 2025 and beyond? Chief marketing officers are forecasting lower social media use, more in-person experiences, and a dramatic rise in applications of artificial intelligence. Any surprise there? What predictions are accurate and what is just speculative puffery? Marketing and sales are full of myths, misconceptions, and apparently way too much social media usage. Join us as we leave the echo chamber and give our 2 cents about what to expect in 2025.
Hello and welcome to the Rethink Marketing Podcast, where today we are diving into our crystal ball. I'm Paul Frodge, joined by Mr. Marketing, and for today's conversation, the data-driven dynamo with a deep dive into disruptive trends. Colin Jeffries. Colin, how are you?
Oh, Paul, I'm great. It feels like it's been too long since we've done a Rethink Marketing Podcast episode together. I did a guest on my own, you did a guest on your own, and now the dynamic duo is back together, so it's good to finally talk to you again.
Absolutely. Looking forward to diving into this episode and the next episode. So we're looking at the 2025 marketing trends by Gartner, and we're going to cover the top three in this episode and the bottom three in the next episode.
That sounds great. Well, we'll dive in with talking about the three predictions. But first, let me just give us a little caveat here for those who are not following the Gartner predictions. And full disclosure, Gartner's predictions can be found on their website. They are publicly available. They did a webinar that is, I believe, available on demand now. Then I sat through it, and it was very interesting and insightful to hear from the people researching why they're putting these predictions together and what their thought process was on making them. So before we dive in, though, I will say that historically Gartner has really reined their predictions in for the upcoming 12 months. Not the case in 2025. Some of these predictions are by 2027 or even 2028. So take them with a little bit of a grain of salt, I would say. And candidly, I understand that. We're dealing with exponential advances, particularly in artificial intelligence. We're dealing with consumer changes. We're dealing with disruptive technology like DeepSeek just coming out and supplanting some of the gains that NVIDIA has made recently. So all sorts of stuff going on that I think behooves us to look beyond just the next 12 months of the calendar and really into the next couple of years. All right, that being said, let's dive into Gartner's predictions for 2025. Prediction number 1, AI-powered search will require major changes in content strategy. More than 1/3 of online content will be created specifically for artificial intelligence and search engines. Prediction number 2, subscription-based content platforms will thrive among social media engagement decline. Digital marketers will allocate 30% of their paid social budgets to ads and partnerships on subscription platforms. And prediction number 3 that we'll be covering today, 50%, half of business-to-consumer brands will abandon dynamic pricing models to build trust. All right, Paul, let's dive in with number 1.
So looking at prediction number 1 with AI-powered search, Colin, looking that will require major changes in content strategy. We both agree on that. Most brands will see dips in website traffic, will push and publish content to try to reverse that trend. But looking at this, I believe that marketers will really need to move more from a traditional keyword-focused approach with prioritizing machine readability, semantic context, and agility, so that it's blending both the human and the AI keywords when really putting together that strategy for the search and SEO. And you and I talk a lot about the AEIO and all of that. So interested to see your thoughts here.
Absolutely. I think a lot of what we're seeing from an SEO perspective is this transition to what's called enterprise SEO, which you mentioned a lot of the key factors here, Paul. Natural language processing, ensuring that machines are able to understand the context and those sorts of things around the content. I agree with this prediction. I think most brands are going to continue to see these dramatic decreases in click-throughs and just general hits to the website. That's going to make first-party data much more important because we'll be getting less of it. And again, we've been talking about this for years. We'll have less access to third-party data digitally. So I agree with this. I think what we're going to see is a huge shift in the reason and sort of the scripting and the objectives behind content marketing, particularly what's been done for search engine optimization. So Blogs will now, instead of being written for Google and sort of humans, they'll be written for AI and sort of humans. But the ultimate objective with blogs and videos and other content historically has been attract the bots, so to speak, so that way people will hit the pages. That's not going to be the case anymore. And I think Gartner nailed this prediction because I align with it, which is we're going to see now the objective is not to get people to the web page. The objective is to get AI to scrape our content, summarize our content, and present our content. And that's going to be considered a vanity metric win rather than actually getting people over to the website itself. Gartner, I will say, their analyst made an interesting observation here, saying that marketers will strategically consider referral traffic in the same way that marketers are looking at target audiences or target segments in today's marketing environment. I think that's probably somewhat true. That's going to depend a lot on the sophistication of the actual marketing team and the sophistication of their digital analytics, but agree with prediction number one.
It's interesting when you go a little bit deeper in this and looking at the technical optimization for AI versus really that human centric type of storytelling that marketers are really going to have to use both sides of their brain to figure this out.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to have to get away from the constant dopamine hits of being able to log in to Google Analytics or your analytics platform du jour and say, oh, we wrote this content last week and we got this many links to it and it's driven this much traffic and it's driven these conversions. We're just going to have to get a little bit more artistic, I think, when it comes to the analytics is on content performance here, Paul.
Absolutely. So, Colin, let's get to prediction number two.
Absolutely. Subscription based content platforms now taking 30% of paid social budgets. Paul, I would love to see this one come to fruition. I just don't think we're there yet. For the last several years, Gartner has been predicting, and again, Gartner is surveying chief marketing officers to get a lot of this data. So CMOs at multinational brands and large national brands have been predicting a decline in social media usage the last couple of years because it's bad for us. We should do less of the things that are bad for us. But every year, social media usage has been increasing. Do I think social media usage, this is traditional social media, so think of Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. Do I think that should decline? Would that be beneficial for humanity generally? Yes, absolutely. The evidence there is insurmountable. However, do I think people will actually put down TikTok and put down Facebook and put down Instagram and shift over to Substack, Medium, and these other subscription channels? People are doing this at some level, but it hasn't hit the precipice yet. So I think we're going to continue to see heavy spend on these paid social platforms. It's going to be user generated content with partnerships. It's going to be influencer engagements, et cetera. We're going to see brands continue to funnel money into creating and distributing content on social media. Will they start to allocate 30% of their budget to Substack, Medium, et cetera? I'm going to say a hard no here, Paul, at least not within the next 24 months. Now, when we hop on the mics in January of 2026 and reevaluate this, we'll be able to say, hey, Colin was right or Colin was wrong based on I'm saying it's going to be sub 10% of budget going to Substack and Medium by end of next year. Paul, what do you think?
I totally agree. 30% clip is just way too high of a prediction. Looking at this, that like you mentioned, social media influencers, there's just too many people, too many marketers, too many companies that are still getting into. I would call it the infancy stages in many regards of social media influencers, and to be able to take 30% out of that now, let's talk in 60 days. If TikTok goes away, that percentage might be higher than you and I are predicting right now. But looking at this, I totally agree. 30% is just way too high for right now.
Well, Paul, you bring up an interesting point. I mean, is the average TikTok user, even if TikTok is stripped away, are they going to Medium? Are they signing up for a newsletter to get their content? Or are they going to Instagram? Are they going to YouTube Shorts? Are they going to another short form video platform? We're also seeing, I mean, LinkedIn is a perfect microcosm of this. LinkedIn, when it started, was very newsletter heavy. You could go in and it was a platform for you to write your long form thoughts and publish a 1,000 plus word, essentially blog article. It was an opportunity for you to create that content and share it and just get it out into the ecosystem and let people consume it and react to it and engage with it. And LinkedIn has not run that direction. They quickly realized, oh my gosh, we should be adding more image content. We should be adding more quick service content. We should be adding more video, short form video content. And they have TikTokified, for lack of a better term, LinkedIn. And I think that's been to the detriment of LinkedIn in a lot of ways. But are we going to see the Substackification, if you will, of LinkedIn again? Are they going to completely reverse course and go the opposite direction? I just don't see that happening. And unfortunately, I don't see a lot of consumers putting down TikTok and picking up Substack. Now, again, the people that are creating content and creating these newsletters on these subscription channel platforms, I think their voice is much more trusted than we're seeing your average quote unquote TikTok influencer, certainly. But have marketers caught up to that yet? And are they shifting budget there? I would say probably not. And let's be honest here too. If the Substack content creators are more trustworthy, does the influx of marketing dollars then erode that trust? There are two sides of the scale that we have to balance: consumer sentiment, consumer behavior, and then the reality of advertising dollars sort of corrupting the quote unquote trustworthiness of these content creators as well.
Yeah, we were talking specifically about TikTok as well. Looking at that, some of the younger users and personas of TikTok users, for instance, are they going to be going to these subscription based channels? And I disagree as well. Now, if TikTok does go away, it's going to be replaced with more screen time with either a brand new platform or current existing platforms where uh, consumers are going to spend their time. So agree there. Let's talk again in a year and see where we're at.
That's right. Well, Paul, prediction number 3, 50%, half of business to consumer brands abandoning dynamic pricing models on the basis of trust. This one I agree with. We've seen a lot of frustration around dynamic pricing models. I think dynamic pricing models are great for financial analysts. They're great for CFOs maximizing profitability, but they are terrible for marketers trying to build trust and loyalty.
100% agree with you. Looking at this, and I'm not going to name the big grocery store giant, that is under some scrutiny for this. There's too much backlash with privacy policies, discrimination, to be able to be in the B2C space and not knowing the reasons behind why prices are being adjusted. Is it, getting too close to identifying is it getting too close to identifying individuals because of facial recognition and discrimination? So I really think that on the B2C side, you should really stay clear of this, is my opinion.
Absolutely. Gartner did some really good research here that 15% of consumers think dynamic pricing helps them get the best price, which means 85% of consumers think that dynamic pricing does not. Instead, it drives skepticism and it makes people feel like they're being taken advantage of. Um, more than half of people are saying, hey, this makes me feel like I've been taken advantage of. The exact number I believe is 64%. So when we're thinking about some classic use cases, right? Uber or Lyft or what have you, where they have surge pricing. And if you want a ride to the airport at the same time that everyone else does, it's going to cost you more. That is a little bit different than I think of healthcare marketing, and where, Paul, I know you work with a lot of healthcare clients in the agency side. I work client side on a lot of healthcare company, or I should say, work client side on several healthcare companies. And one of the biggest complaints that we get from people not doing preventative care or not taking great care of themselves is, I didn't know how much it was going to cost, or I thought it might be too expensive, or fill in the blank related to price. And if price is a barrier for us to take care of our bodies, imagine how price is going to be a barrier if people are looking at dynamic pricing. Again, I think Wendy's trying to do dynamic pricing and having some massive backlash, and in some other instances like that, it's not worth it. We would rather have, as a CMO, as a CFO, as a CEO, I think we would rather have people stepping in and saying, yes, I'm aligned with that brand. I'm going to be a loyal customer, and we're going to improve customer lifetime value versus improving profits with dynamic pricing over a very short period of time. So I agree totally with Gartner on this one.
If the tech wasn't so advanced and we can just go back to the days of just we can go back to the days of just supply and demand versus everything else that gets put into this, and that makes more sense. There's two of these items left on the shelf. It's going to cost, two times more. Whoever wants it can buy it. That's a little bit different than all the analytics and data that we have at our disposal now to be looking at the discrimination factor, which gets into rocky road there for marketers and for businesses.
Absolutely. Is a hamburger in that zip code more expensive from 11:30 to 1:30 on a Tuesday than in a different zip code at a different time, or a different zip code at the same time? I mean, dynamic pricing, again, I think really, really cool for financial analysts. If I'm running SQL models or, Looker BI models or whatever to try to figure out how I can optimize profit within a constrained period of time by literally taking advantage of particular customers, cool, great. But for marketers who want loyal customers over a long period of time, dynamic pricing is just not the way to go. I'll even go further than Gartner. I think 70% of B2C brands are going to abandon dynamic pricing models within the next 18 months. I think 50% is not high enough. First of all, we have to consider all of the brands that are B2C that have not embraced this type of marketing and this type of price variance and in really price targeting in a lot of ways. So I think that's one, is many of them will not embrace it. Two is the lawsuit factor, right? You took advantage of this minority community, or you took advantage of this underserved community, or what have you. That's something else. Three is the public perception of, even if you're not getting involved in some sort of litigious activity related to it, the brand perception that you're going to charge that community and that zip code during this time more for that cheeseburger than you're going to charge another community because that shop is less busy, it just doesn't sit well with consumers, and it erodes trust. So I also think we're going to continue to see customers banding together to demand more fair treatment. It's hard to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative if people are not being granted equity here. And so I think even from we hire anybody, we promote anybody, we serve everybody. Well, we're going to serve everybody with dynamic pricing. And so certain people that want our product during this time window or ship to these zip codes or fill in the blank are going to have to pay more. I just don't see this playing out well long-term for most brands, Paul.
Absolutely. So getting close to time here. This was a good conversation for the top 3 Gartner 2025 marketing predictions. Stay tuned for next week for 4 through 6. Thanks for joining us on the Rethink Marketing Podcast, and keep rethinking those common assumptions.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If people want to connect with us, where should they go, Paul?
RethinkMarketingPodcast.com, Colin. What can listeners do to help us in return for the sage marketing wisdom and our pithy humor?
They can help us by leaving a review on their favorite platform or sharing this episode with a fellow marketer to help them cut through the clutter.
Well, until next time, keep rethinking those common assumptions.